speaking of people who are detached in some way from both reality and also in their pursuit of money or celebrity or attention or whatever it is. Last night on Laura Ingram's program, the Candace Owens, you remember she was the one who, what did she say about the Nazis? They were, but for the...
Hitler was too much of a globalist, basically.
Yeah, he was a little bit too much.
He was too Jewish. That's her primary critique.
Exactly. He was a little bit too, she had some... But I think she said something specifically about like the Nazis, like if it wasn't for this,
if they were just trying to make Germany great, it would have been fine. But the problem is they went into Poland.
Right. Yeah. If they had just stuck domestically, right?
But it was a defense of nationalism.
Right. So, and that I think probably led to her leaving Turning Points USA. I don't know if that was the case. I mean, there's a lot of questions.
So she went on with a Nazi.
That precipitated it. Yeah.
So
Don't
here
go
she
after
is.
the Jews too much for no reason.
Right, exactly. Here she is on Laura Ingram's show. Now, this is a great catch. I first saw this from Mehdi Hassan. I don't know where else did he. Maybe where else did he?
Cody Johnson of
Cody
Some More
Johnson?
News was also tweeting about it.
All right. Well, so regardless, here is Laura Ingram talking to Candace Owens. And now it is the case that statistically, a lot of people became aware of certain racial dynamics in the country when Barack Obama was president. One is that they found out like that a black guy is allowed to be president in the United States. We know that 50% of white non-college educated voters found out for the first time that the Democratic Party was to the left of the Republican Party on race. Did you hear about that statistic? That was from Identity Crisis, that book. But according to Candace Owens, race was not an issue in this country until Barack Obama came along.
If the old way worked, I mean, I think there's wisdom to that. If Obama worked, oh yeah,
he's got to be talking about beyond Obama.
I respect that.
If the old way worked, who came before Trump?
Right, it was Obama, and Obama did a lot to tear this country apart. I do not remember when I was growing up having all of these race issues, okay? I really don't remember it. And then suddenly towards the end of Obama, we started hearing all of this rhetoric drummed up. It became white versus black all over again. And I say all over again, I shouldn't even say that because when I was alive, this was not an issue. It all became about race, and I really do think that they were laying down the groundwork for Hillary to run because they had already pre-selected her to be the president of the United States. So they started using that awful name-calling rhetoric, which they fell short of.
What did Obama do that drove
backed up the police violence stuff? He backed up the myth of police. It's the myth of police brutality. I'm not done.
If they're wrong,
he added fire. He added gasoline to a fire that was simply untrue. The myth of police brutality as something that was a problem facing the myth of police brutality.
Okay, we don't need to hear any more. There's only so many mixed metaphors I can handle. There's nothing worse than, folks, to adding gasoline to an untrue fire. That is one of the most dangerous things you could do. Please do not try that at home. Now here's the thing. I just want, Nomi, I'm glad you're here because I'm not
Candace
so great
Owens, expert.
I'm not so great with math. And so she said, now, while she's alive, now she's still alive, at least by appearance. She appears to be. But she said by the end of Obama, can you give me the date of the end of Obama, at least in terms of the Obama presidency? When was that about?
January 20th, the morning of January 20th, 2017.
Okay, so the end of Obama could be like 2015, 2016,
sure,
2017. That's when, or maybe let's say 2014. We'll be generous to her. So we'll give a wide berth as to when Obama started to do this rhetoric or whatever. She also pronounces rhetoric weird. And that's when the race thing started happening. Prior to that, in the entire time that she was alive, she wasn't even aware of race stuff, which is really weird because
she doesn't see color.
Yeah, she doesn't see color at all. Now, this is a clip from the Danbury, Connecticut News Times. Danbury, Connecticut, a little city in Connecticut, central Connecticut, more or less. Is that right? Near Hartford, a little bit.
It's closer to New York.
Okay, and here it is. This is January 23rd, 2008. The title of the news article is a racist threats case filed by Stanford High student settled for $37,500. The lawsuit filed in May accused the city of, quote, failing to act in part because one of the callers is the son of Stanford Mayor Daniel Malloy. And this is apparently, this is Mayor Malloy, I guess. I don't know if he was the governor at that point. I don't know. The exact amount of the Board of Education paid the family of Candace Owens, now an 18-year-old Stanford High graduate, was made public yesterday after the advocate filed a Freedom of Information request last week. They spent an initial $25,000, and the school board has 30 days to pay the Owens family by check to their attorney, Norman Pattis. The entire $62,500 tab will come out of a $375,000 legal fund. There was a $25,000 cost to the city. So this is what happened. Last February, at least one of 5 teenagers sitting in a car left messages threatening to kill Owens, who is black, and repeatedly used a racial epithet. One of the 3 messages, one of them referred to her as dirty and threatened to burn her house down and tar and feather her. The group included Malloy's youngest son, Sam, sadly, then 14. The mayor released a statement in March saying his son cooperated with police, did not know the alleged ringleader, Evan Kopech, or Owens before the night of the calls. Kopech was a former friend and classmate of Owens. They had a shouting match during school. Owens left school for 6 weeks, saying it was traumatic to attend with the alleged callers. She returned after Kopech was arrested in spring. The school system has done nothing to protect Miss Owens from repeated harassment and intimidation by the young men and her friends.
This is crazy.
And this, incidentally, the school officials suspended Kopech, but would not discipline him and other boys for incident committed off school grounds unless the police made an arrest, which drew criticism from the state National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
This is so crazy on so many levels.
And now, apparently, it's not, to be fair, it's not 100% clear from this story. Well, I guess they repeatedly used a racial epithet. Now, maybe she wasn't aware of race during this time.
This was pre-Obama.
By
a year.
About a year.
Her memory just and put this in context. Malloy, right, who ended up being, I believe, the chair of the platform committee hearings of the DNC, became governor of Connecticut. Eventually, from there, in very quick time. I mean, that's probably when she learned to hate Democrats.
I mean, I don't know what led to Candace Owens from there until here. I mean, she stayed home from school for 6 weeks. She was clearly traumatized. And she's dealing with something.
Yeah.
And sadly, not dealing with it very well. And I have sympathy for that. But my edict is always, I judge you if you're a public figure based upon what you put out in the public. And what she's putting out is pretty toxic and it's garbage. But it takes either a tremendous amount of emotional and intellectual dysfunction to do what she's done, or just a tremendous lack of integrity. And it's not conceivable that all things are not in play in that.
She's also making a lot of money.
There you go.
It kind of reminds me of Juanita Broaddrick, right? Because she was legitimately traumatized by Democrats, including Bill Clinton, namely. And I can totally understand why she hates the Clintons and hates the Democrats. I don't understand why she would then decide that Trump is good. But sometimes the enemy of your enemy is your friend.
Well, and that's ultimately, I think, this weird space that we live in.
But let's be clear on one thing. When a child is 14 years old and participates with these other guys, to blame that on the Democratic Party is that doesn't make quite as much sense. I mean, it's one thing where I mean, I understand.
He's the mayor. I mean, he's powerful. Suddenly they don't deal with, his son doesn't have to deal with the consequences. It's a Democratic mayor. All the Democrats are corrupt. You go through these. And if that's her evolving brain and maybe her parents.
If she had said Democrats usually are the ones who are attacking black people, that would at least make more sense. But to say that race was not an issue until Obama. A little dubious.
Well, she's doing the work for them now. Like she's a partisan soldier, and she's going to say whatever she needs to say to help them
and help her go viral.
Exactly.
And,
like I think she really believes in this stuff, and she is making a ton of money.
I don't believe that she believes in this stuff. Just like every other person I've ever met on Fox News doesn't actually believe this stuff unless they're Nazis. Like I really truly think most of the people that I've met on Fox News, especially young, it is an act. Like. You get off, I'm sure you've debated these people, you get off set and you can have a normal conversation. It's the Democrats that you fight with that we walk off and we're not talking to each other.
Right.
Oh, I don't mean that she literally believes in the stuff she says, like, oh, race was never an issue before Obama, but I think she really believes in the Republican side, and she's going to say whatever crazy nonsense she has to say to help them, no?
No, don't believe it. 100% don't believe it.
I think she just probably thinks that politics are irrelevant, and that's the way that you can enter into this. I mean, I remember talking to I think it was Larry Elder in the 2004 DNC, and Janine Garofalo and I were there. We had been doing this for four or 5 months, maybe. We took it very seriously, and he said something to us to the effect of like, we were. Come on, guys, game day. We're not on air now. We can just talk. And I'm like, what? Like you just take this? Like this is all a game to you?
Well, it's money for them. I mean, remember that guy Boris
Epstein?
Epstein. Okay. So
are you kidding?
I got to know him very well in 2016.
Really?
Oh yeah, he's like part of the investigation now, and now he's on what's that?
He's on Sinclair.
Sinclair,
we play him all the time.
He wanted to host a show on Sirius with me. So I got to know him very well. We would have lunch. This is before I realized he was of course he was like a right-left thing. And also at a time when we didn't think Trump was going to win. He was deep, but it was unveiled that he was much deeper than I had even imagined. But he was so pleasant, despite the fact that he would yell at makeup artists, to me, as a human being. And what I really realized very quickly in our conversations as we were discussing, a right-left show, which everybody wanted at that moment, was he just wanted to make money. And every single conversation would come from this place of, this is how we're going to make money. This is how, we can monetize this. My brain just doesn't work that way. Sorry to it doesn't formulate that way. And so the communication barriers between us were he's taking this role and I'm taking this role. And he would be like, well, you can always evolve on this. If Hillary becomes, the nominee, you can support Hillary. And I'm like, no. And, it was just, he didn't understand that it wasn't flexible for me.
Right. Right. I think that is.
That well.
I think on some level that is why there's a certain advantage that the right has is that they have no shame and no integrity, which allows you to a lot of flexibility in terms of shifting in certain directions so that you can
support a coup,
keep your voice and support a coup. So
that's it.
Really?
I mean, this is one reason why it's been so hard to understand fascism historically, is that malleability on the part of the right and that rhetoric slippage and the irony, non-irony, continuum that it exists on. It can be whatever it needs to be at any given point in time. Whereas people on the left have, an ideology.
It is much easier to be sort of like somewhat detached and flexible with your racism and your hatred of others. You can always just sort of like make an exception here and there.
Can I ask you just a quick question in
course.
terms of exercise? So there's not a lot of places on the left where we can have conversations about issues. Definitely not in cable news. You're very rarely invited on at this point. Mm-hmm. And Fox and the right wing, you are often given a space to be a little bit more open with your beliefs. And if you choose to use that, like take a clip from Fox News and make it go viral or make fun of, the right wing or whatever it is, you can use it to your advantage, but they're using you. I mean, where's the line there? Like Candace Owens is using media for her career and shifting her beliefs. But when the left goes on the right, this is a real, what is the line? Like, because there's no space. This is because we're talking about Juanita Broaddrick, and I'm thinking, how do you get to that point? So
you're saying when you go on to Fox, are you helping Fox more than are you helping Fox because in some ways it also promotes yourself versus like sort of, I don't know, waging a good fight? Is that the question?
Sort of, but also it's a slippery slope. Like, so, I believe that, there are plenty of people in America who've not been spoken to by the left, and Fox has a monopoly on much of America. And so you need to get that message out there, a populist message, even if you have to creep it in. But there are many people who think that, like, just don't go on.
Right.
Because they're making money off of you, and maybe they don't understand the complexities of Fox, but, like, ultimately they're making money off of you. Also true. But then you look at someone like Juanita Broaddrick, who no one in the mainstream media would cover, and many others, like even the Jeffrey Epstein story, right? Nobody would cover this. They would hide it. And the only space you can go on to release that is maybe right-wing media. And that is how someone like Juanita Broaddrick, who's not a political professional, can maybe go slide into Donald Trump is the person who finally gave my story the space that it needs.
Right. I'm not sure I know exactly what you're asking.
I'm just saying, there are people like Juanita. There are plenty of people who aren't able to get their stories out, and so they use the right wing. And I don't know what Candace Owens, how she ended up sliding that way, but is that bad? Is that a bad thing for people to use a Fox News or what's the thing where the Epstein thing was leaked?
I don't know that Juanita Broaddrick is doing anything. I don't think what she's doing is a political exercise in her mind. I think what she's doing is, she is seeking some semblance of her own personal justice. Mm-hmm. And I guess arguably, some broader sense of justice. But I mean, I'm not in a position to make that assessment. But I don't think she's operating on a completely different sort of set of ground rules than, let's say, someone like you or I, or like a political candidate.
Well, what about the woman who leaked, or we don't know who it is actually, that leaked the Epstein things to Project Veritas? Project Veritas is disgusting. It's a disgusting outlet, if we want to call it that. Most of what they publish is crap and set up.
It doesn't reflect well on mainstream corporate media that people are feeling the need to go to the right.
I suspect that the person the person from CBS who got fired, right, that had worked at ABC, mm-hmm. I suspect that they are just right wing, and they saw this as a right, as a political. They saw it as political. Like, I think had they gone to a different outlet,
they could have gone to TrueAnon,
or they could have gone to like The Intercept,
right?
And it would have gotten, I think, a lot more coverage, frankly. So I just think that was a mistake. That was, someone was blinded by their own ideology and saw this in the context of an ideological thing where it wasn't. I don't think it was ideological. I think it was, there are outlets that are not sort of like mainstream corporate establishment outlets that are far more, I think, sort of legitimate from my perspective than Project Veritas. I think, and I think that's a broadly shared assessment, and so, but I think in the political realm, you've got to, it's a case-by-case basis. Mm-hmm. I think there are some people who should never go on Fox because they're going to get rolled. Mm-hmm. I think there are other people who can go on Fox and maybe do a one-off, like your buddy
Rutger
Bregman. I thought that is, he was basically like, I'm taking a flyer. I'm going to do one and
arsonist.
And I think that's very effective. So I think you have to have a proper assessment of what you're going to bring to the moment. And
also just, when you do go to the far right and you make an argument, there's a careful balance. It might be a very legitimate argument, but it can be completely ignored or dismissed by centrists because you're going on that platform. And I think that's the game that they have is, don't pay attention to Project Veritas in that clip because it's Project Veritas.
Right. Well, frankly, it's like, we ran with that clip, but it is, first off, Project Veritas is not a reliable source. Right. And so we got to make sure that clip is real, and we would scrutinize it a lot more than we would have had The Intercept put it up, because I trust when the editors of The Intercept get that type of material, I trust that they're going to vet it.
Right.
I mean, just they have a track record of being an actual journalistic enterprise, whereas Project Veritas has a track record of being
going to jail.
And being a myth
Literally.
maker. So, I mean, that's the thing, is all this is sort of it has to be very contextualized, I think, in any specific moment.